I'm talking about my formula for a clean and simple card here at Blue Scallop Creations. Clean and simple cards, or cast cards for short, are one of my favorite styles in the card making world. They're light on technique with an emphasis on design, and they contain lots of white space with a light and fresh feel that seems so easy to make at first, but can take some practice. I was recently going over some of my past card designs, and I wanted to try and figure out what some of the common denominators were for creating my cast cards. So I ended up coming up with this simple formula that might help you if you're interested in this style and you're looking for a jumping off point when you're trying to create clean and simple cards. So this is the formula here. And I also have a blog post that I will link to that has the formula on there if you want to go over there, or you can take a screenshot of this if you need a little help when you go on and create your cards. But basically, this is my formula. I was just kind of trying to figure out, all right, what is it about a certain card that makes it pleasing to the eye, at least to me? And what am I doing on these cards? It's kind of, like I said, the common denominator. So basically what I do is I start with a white card base, and that is an important layer because you want the white card base to kind of be that white space that we talk about when we have clean and simple cards, a place for the eye to rest. Then you have the focal point, which is the main attraction on a card. Sometimes it can be a big, bold sentiment, or other times it could be a flower or a group of animals, but it's basically anything that draws somebody's eye to the card that kind of makes them want to look at it. And then there's the third element, and this would be what I'm calling kind of like a wow factor. So this would be maybe a pop of color or a little bit of texture, using different, like one technique. So like a dry embossing or heat embossing with a kind of the glossy look, or maybe a little bit of Copic coloring on one element. It's not a card that has a ton of different techniques on it. It's just maybe one little technique that kind of just draws your eye towards it and you notice it among all the other white space. So the style relies heavily on many of the principles of design. And over on the blog post, I have a link to a really good, quick kind of review of some of the principles of design. But I also have a book that I refer to a lot. It's called White Space is Not Your Enemy. And I think it's in the third edition now. You can get it over on Amazon. But I really like this. This is for graphic designers, but it's also kind of a beginner's guide to creating any type of visual communication. So this would work for scrapbooking layouts even too, just to kind of help you understand, what's visually pleasing. But this goes through design principles, and it gives you all kinds of fun examples in here, plus how to use color in your designs. And it's a great reference book just to keep on hand if you want to refer back to things. But as cast cards are known for, it's mainly the design rather than the technique, because you have that very simple look. And if you make that design just perfect on the card, that's all you need. And you can have it very simple, but as long as it's arranged properly, it can look really good. So let me show you a couple of examples of some older cards that I've made. I've evolved a bit from kind of like the plain and simple flat cards that is more traditionally known as a cast card. So this is an example here. I just printed this out because this is years old. Hopefully you can see this okay. This is a, so what I was thinking was I have kind of evolved more towards a clean and layered look. So I like to have a little bit of kind of layering on my cards, but still in a clean and simple way, because I tend to I sell more at craft shows and sometimes in my Etsy shop too. And I think people tend to enjoy having a little bit more texture on their handmade cards than just kind of a flat look. But it is fun to practice using design principles on a perfectly flat card and to see how you can make it look visually pleasing with basically no layers on it whatsoever. This was a really pretty sentiment. I think this was from Casual Fridays. And this was a perfectly flat card. I had a white card base, and the only thing I did was just have a pure black sentiment with this particular sentiment had this bold U as kind of the main focal point. So this would be the focal point. So I've got the white card base focal point here with the darker, bolder U. And then for my, what I call the third layer, I would consider my third layer to be the little bit of, I think this was a little bit of watercolor, using this kind of like a pop of sort of a bluish purple on these leaves. Kind of just, it draws your eye towards the sentiment, but it still has a very nice clean look. So that would be kind of the third layer. But, and then the sentiment being right in the middle, that's very pleasing to the eye too. Because if you know anything about design principles, I think it's called the rule of threes, where you can kind of divide your card or your canvas into 9 parts. And the wherever you put your focal point, if you put it on certain points in the middle or around in certain areas on the these 9 sections, that's where it's supposed to be pleasing to the eye. So putting something right in the middle is always nice, but then having these little bit of color on the leaves gives it a little bit of interest. And also the way that the vines are kind of moving in a circle a little bit, that provides movement. So that's another design principle. It's movement. It helps your eye move around the card. This is a pure example, I think, of a clean and simple card. And after looking at this, I'm thinking I should try to make these a little bit more often, because they are actually probably the hardest to do, is a perfectly flat card that doesn't look boring. That's kind of, it pops and looks interesting, but you don't need anything else on it. So that's the first example. Let's see. Let me find another one. I've been doing some Christmas cards lately, and this was one. Let's see. Let me show you this one. This is a little more clean and simple with a little bit of layering. This was a card I did using some Catherine Pooler stamps, and so you got the white card base, and then the main focal point would be, I think it would probably kind of be this cluster of the drink glasses along with the sentiment here. So it's kind of clustered in the middle. Everything is touching. That's, again, kind of a design rule. Having things touch kind of clusters them together. And then, so that's the focal point. And then the little extra I have here is a little bit of layering underneath of the Fa La La with a different color ink that I kind of layered underneath. So it gives it a little bit of depth. But it still keeps the card very simple. And then I just added, you can always add little things, but kind of staying within the principles of design. I like to add little enamel dots, or in this case, these are little metal dots. And I did it in 3s. So the eye likes odd numbers. So 3s, 5s. I probably don't do anything more than 5 on a card, but 3 is usually my go-to of enamel dots or sequins or something like that. And again, you kind of put 2 together, and then you have 1 farther apart. Then it makes a visual triangle, which is another design element that's great to use in clean and simple cards. So this is kind of a little more of a clean and layered example. And this is kind of an even more layered example, but yet still clean and simple because of all the white space. This is a card I made just for the holiday season, and I started off thinking I was just going to do a plain white card base, and I think that probably would have been enough, but I just wanted to go one step further, and I added this texture here. So the focal point for this, I think, would be the main panel here. I kind of popped it up with some foam tape, and I've got the sentiment here, and then the images that are just plain black and white. So that's kind of the bold focal point that draws your eye forward. And then for my third element, I added the stenciled background with some ink blending. And then this, I kind of went a little bit off the path a little, and then added some texture here, some embossing, but I left it white on white. So it's not overpowering. It's not like I have a different color card base in the back and then I did some embossing that way. I think just leaving it white, just giving it some texture, it still keeps it clean and simple because you have that tone-on-tone look. So these are just some examples of some of my, oh, I can show you one more actually. I've got this one. This was a birthday card. This is just a plain happy birthday card. Again, I've got the focal point of the tulip here. And then I would say my third layer is the stamped paintbrush swatch behind the flower with a little bit of the Copic coloring of the orange. So the orange kind of pops against the white. So that, again, gives it kind of that wow factor, but still keeping it clean and simple. So I hope these examples were helpful. Again, I encourage you to go over to the blog post and read a little bit more about it, and you can take a look at the little formula again that I made. If you like the style, I would suggest creating a portfolio for yourself as you start practicing making cast cards, or, you know, save them in a file on your phone, which is what I do. And I kind of take a look at them over time and kind of figure out, and analyze your cards and kind of figure out what you like about the card, what is pleasing to the eye about the card. And then as you keep making cards, you can kind of use those same elements for the next card. And then you can really try and master your clean and simple card making technique. You can make up a little, if you like a hard copy of something, which I always like a book. I made this from, I think this was Snapfish or one of those photo printing companies. But I did recently I take this to craft shows, and I've shown this before, but I make just a little portfolio of some of my favorite cards. And I refer back to this all the time too. So just some of my favorites. And a lot of these are designs that I use over and over again because I really like the visual layout of them and some of the elements. So yeah, so this is another good thing to have on hand in your craft room. So let me know if you have any questions. This is a fun topic. I haven't talked about card making in a while, and I thought this would be kind of fun. I've been making a lot of cards lately with the holidays coming up, so I thought that it would be fun to talk a little bit about cast card making and maybe answer any questions you might have. So definitely leave some comments below if you have questions about anything, or if there's another follow-up video you'd like. I can definitely take that into consideration. So thanks again for joining me today, and I'll see you in my next video.